But 15-year-old Alyssa Bustamante, who was on a day off from school, pulled out a large shovel and dug 2 holes in the ground to serve as burial sites for her victims. Alyssa mainly seemed like a typical teenager, even if she was very rebellious sometimes. The persona Alyssa gave off on the internet showed a much darker side of her, which turned out to be Alyssa's true self. Bustamante might not have had a good chance of making anything out of herself despite her best efforts. Since the age of 7, Bustamante had been living under the watchful eye of a guardian. Despite coming from a religious household and having a good reputation as a student, her psychological difficulties became too difficult to overcome after a while. From the age of 2 until she was 9 years old, Alyssa lived at her grandparents' home. Michelle Bustamante, her mother, had a history of having a problem with drugs and alcohol, which led to charges and jail time. Cesar Bustamante, her father, was serving time in jail for assault when she was born. In response, Alyssa's grandparents could obtain legal custody of her and her 3 younger siblings in California. As a means of escape from their former lives, the kids moved to a rural ranch-like property in St. Martins, Missouri. And despite the setbacks her parents suffered, she managed to become an A and B student in high school. And when you look at the appearance of Alyssa was that of a normal child, and her grandparents provided her with a stable home that her parents were unable to deliver. Alyssa was known for being a poet and a joking person, according to her friends. She was a regular participant in several youth activities at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where she attended church regularly. In 2007, however, Alyssa attempted to take her own life. After spending 10 days in a psychiatric hospital in St. Martins, the teen was put on antidepressants. Alyssa would cut herself several times despite the medication she was taking. Several of the youngsters' friends have recounted how she has frequently shown them how scarred her wrists are. Then, on October 21, 2009, Alyssa brought her darkest fantasies into the open. As always, Alyssa went about her day as she always did, going to school, hanging out with friends, and just waiting for the perfect chance to kill. And on the 23rd of October, 2009, in the evening, her neighbor, Elizabeth-9, was walking home by herself after visiting her friend on the 21st. Olton was all sweetness and light. She was a sweet little girl made of sugar, spice, and everything excellent. She was a real girly girl who loved cats. Elizabeth was last seen at 6:15 p.m., when she left her friend's house for home, only a few houses away from her house. Elizabeth was never seen alive again after that. When Elizabeth Olton left the house to go home, she had been playing with Alyssa Bustamante's half-sister, who lived a few doors down. The 6-year-old and the 9-year-old pals hung out, and then, when Olton started her journey home, she was allegedly diverted by Bustamante, who called Olton on her cell phone and redirected her back to Bustamante's house. It was alleged that Bustamante then led Olton into the woods. Olton, who was afraid of the dark, would have trusted the older teen. They played together and were friends. But Olton could never have imagined that she would be brutally murdered. It was Alyssa who grabbed Olton, beat her, strangled her, and lastly, stabbed and slit the throat of the innocent girl. Her body was dumped into a grave she had dug the week before in a nearby wooded area. So, when Olton had not returned home, the family began frantically searching for her and called the police around 7 p.m. to report her missing. It is no surprise that her family became increasingly worried as they knew she was afraid of the dark, and would not have wandered off alone. There was no doubt in their minds that Elizabeth would not stay out after dark alone, and they knew they had to find her. What they didn't realize was that it was already too late. The girls came from the 2 neighboring communities in Missouri. St. Martins and Jefferson City epitomize small-town America. St. Martins, where Olton lived, has just over 1,000 people. Everyone knows each other. So when Olton failed to make it home from a friend's house just a quarter mile away, there was cause for alarm. The search began almost immediately. Though there was a 2-lane highway that ran the stretch from the friend that Olton had been visiting her own house, she had already taken a shortcut through the woods, curving around and behind neighboring lawns and backyards. It was dark and cold when the search began with the assistance of hundreds of volunteers, and because it had started pouring rain while searching the wooded terrain, searching for survivors became a difficult task. Among the searchers were dogs, firefighters, police, helicopters, the FBI, and highway patrolmen. Despite going over and over the area, they were unable to find the location. At this point, it is believed that the community and the police were afraid that an older male predator had snatched up the girl as she walked through the woods alone on her way home. There was no indication that it was a member of the community, much less a teenage girl. As time went on, details began to emerge, and rumors quickly spread. A teenager was described as being of interest to the authorities. Police had been able to gather some evidence, writings that led them to the teenager. The day after the murder, Bustamante failed to show up for school for the first time in her school career. In the meantime, Bustamante had reveled in her reputation as a bad girl. The images she posted to her Facebook page showed her with red lipstick smeared across her lips, designed to look ominously bloody, paired with black kabuki makeup over her eyes. The girl gritted her teeth and made faces when she wasn't pouting like a sexbot. It was rumored that she was a bit of a bully in her town. As with many teenagers, she was deeply involved with social media, having pages on MySpace, Twitter, and Facebook. She was a YouTube user who went by the name Okami Cage, and under her hobbies, she listed killing people, cutting. She had been treated for severe depression and had tried to commit suicide before. She claimed that she was somewhere I don't want to be. In the photo of her with skin-colored lipstick, she points an index finger at her head like a gun. Red marks are visible on her inner wrist. A tweet a few weeks before the murder read, "This is all I want in life, a reason for all this pain." Her YouTube account featured several videos of her and her brothers, mainly just engaging in horseplay or mimicking jackass stunts, but one, in particular, was disturbing. Idiots getting electrocuted by electric fence.
A disturbing video has surfaced of the 15-year-old Central Missouri teen
Alyssa was arrested in connection with the death of Elizabeth-9, and she was charged with first-degree murder as the girl's body was found in a grave after a week of digging. Shockingly, the teenager who led the police to the body. It had been in the very woods they had been searching. However, a detail from the press conference gave people even more pause. But why were there two graves, and whether one or both graves had been used for Elizabeth? No, those two graves belonged to her beloved younger brothers. During the autopsy, it was revealed that Olton had been strangled, her wrists and throat had been slashed, and she had been stabbed. The motive for the attack was simple and terrifying. At the end of the day, she stated that she wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. She said, "I just fucking killed someone. I strangled them and slit their throats and stabbed them. Now they're dead. I don't know how to feel at the moment. It was amazing. As soon as you get over the oh my god, I can't do this feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm somewhat nervous and shaking, though, right now. I got to go to church now, lol." The case gathered national attention after it was discovered that she was a juvenile, so there was a question as to whether or not she would be tried as an adult under state law, which could potentially bring a death sentence to her. In Missouri, however, the state has a two-pronged system for handling young offenders, a system that is similar to Canada's. Missouri is one of 22 states that use a dual jurisdiction system.
Yes.